The phone shattered the morning quiet at 6:30 a.m. just as I was starting to make breakfast for the kids. An unfamiliar number on the screen made me wary. Who would call this early? "Good morning, this is Mercy General Hospital. Are you a relative of Eleanor Ainsworth?" The nurse's voice was professional, yet I caught a faint note of sympathy. My heart lurched. Aunt Ellie, my beloved aunt, the one my husband's family always dismissed as a peculiar old woman with her vintage collectibles shop and endless stories about bygone eras. Yes, I'm her niece. What happened? Ms. Ainsworth was admitted last night in critical condition. She's had a major stroke. She's in the ICU, and the doctors recommend you come as soon as possible. My hands started to tremble. I mechanically jotted down the room and unit number, promising to be there within the hour. Dennis was still asleep. His shift at the plant didn't start until 10 hours. I woke him and quickly explained. "Is it serious?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes, not fully awake. "Very serious. I need to go to the hospital right now. The kids. Can you take them to school and daycare on your way to work? I've already packed their lunches." Dennis nodded, but a flicker of irritation crossed his face. He never understood my attachment to Aunt Ellie. To him, she was just an eccentric old woman who hoarded old junk and lived in the past. As I rushed to get ready, I remembered my last conversation with Aunt Ellie just 3 days ago. She'd called talking about some important things she needed to finalize, speaking in riddles as usual. "Anna, my dear," she'd said, "the time to set things right is approaching." I'd assumed she was talking about another reorganization of her shop. At the hospital, a doctor, a woman in her 50s with tired but kind eyes, met me. "You're Eleanor Ainsworth's relative. I'm Dr. Evans. I'm afraid your aunt's condition is critical. A massive stroke affecting the right hemisphere of her brain. She drifts in and out of consciousness, but not for long. Can I see her?" "Of course, but only for a short while, and please be quiet. Any agitation could worsen her condition." Aunt Ellie lay amidst a tangle of wires and tubes, looking so small and frail. Her usually bright, sparkling eyes were closed. I gently took her hand. It was cold, almost transparent. "Aunt Ellie, it's me, Anna. I'm here." Her eyelids fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. Recognition. The faintest smile touched the corners of her mouth. "Anna? Good. You came." Her voice was weak, but her mind seemed clear. "Don't talk much. Save your strength." "No, dear. We need to talk. I don't have much time. And there's something you need to know." I pulled a chair closer to the bed. Aunt Ellie had always been special to me. After my parents passed, she became my only link to my childhood, to family stories and traditions. "Listen carefully, Anna. Remember I told you about my shop?" "Of course. You've been collecting antiques your whole life." "Well, 2 months ago, I sold it." I nearly jumped out of my seat. "Sold it, but why you never said anything?" "Because the buyer offered a sum I couldn't refuse. $2 million, Anna. For the shop and the entire collection." My head spun. $2 million. I knew Aunt Ellie had some rare items, but that kind of money. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you need to know the truth. And there's a room in my house you don't know about. Behind the big bookcase in my study, there's a hidden door. That's where I keep what I didn't sell, the most valuable things." Aunt Ellie spoke slowly but distinctly, as if each word carried immense weight. "What place I know your house like the back of my hand. You know only what I wanted to show you. Behind the bookcase are my grandfather's paintings, bank documents, and something else." A nurse peeked into the room and gave a meaningful look at her watch. Time was up. "Aunt Ellie, rest now. We'll talk later." "No, Anna. There might not be a later." She squeezed my hand surprisingly strong for someone so weak. "I want you to know. I've been observing your family for a long time, how they treat you, what they say behind your back." "What are you talking about?" "About how your husband and his mother see me as a burden. They think I'm just some eccentric with nothing of value. They're wrong, dear, and they'll soon find out." The old sparkle, the one I loved so much as a child, returned to her eyes. "Aunt Ellie, don't think about them now. Think about yourself, about getting better." "No, sweetheart, I need to tell you something else, something important. There will be a surprise in my will, a surprise that will show the true colors of your loved ones." "What surprise?" But her eyes had closed, her breathing shallow. The nurse gently but firmly asked me to leave. "She's tired. Come back tomorrow." I returned home in a daze. Dennis was already at work, the kids at school and daycare. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea trying to process everything. $2 million for the shop, a secret room. And what did she mean about a surprise in her will? The phone interrupted my thoughts. It was my mother-in-law, Valerie. "Anna, dear, Dennis told me about your aunt. So, is it pretty bad?" Valerie Peterson always spoke of Aunt Ellie with poorly concealed disdain. "Your peculiar aunt." I never heard her use any other description. "Her condition is critical. A stroke." "I see. Well, what can you do at her age? I hope she at least made a will. You know her house is full of all sorts of clutter." There it was, her true concern. My mother-in-law was already thinking about the inheritance. Though what inheritance? In her mind, Aunt Ellie only had old furniture and worthless knickknacks. "Valerie, it's too soon to think about that." "Oh, I don't mean anything by it, just being practical. You never know, there might be something valuable in there." Hanging up, I felt a familiar wave of irritation. How her materialism grated on me. Aunt Ellie was still fighting for her life, and they were already calculating what they could get. That evening, when the family gathered for dinner, Dennis brought up the hospital. "So, how's your aunt? What are the doctors saying?" "It's unclear. Her condition is critical. Mom called asking about her." Dennis glanced at me. "She said, we should probably find out about the will, just in case." "Dennis?" I couldn't hold back. "The woman is dying and you're already dividing up her estate. Calm down. Nobody's dividing anything. Mom's right, though. We need to be prepared for anything." Max and Sophie ate in silence, but I saw them listening to every word. I didn't want to continue this in front of the children. "We'll talk later," I said curtly. After dinner, when the kids were in their rooms, Dennis continued, "Listen, Anna, what does she even have in that old house? I don't know, furniture, books, old things? Anything valuable, like paintings, jewelry?" I remembered Aunt Ellie's words about the secret room and her grandfather's paintings, but decided to keep quiet for now. Possibly, but does that really matter right now? Of course it matters. Look, if she leaves you something, it could solve our financial problems. Pay off the mortgage, get a decent car. There it was. Dennis was already making plans for a potential inheritance, talking about it as calmly as if it were a bonus or a lottery win. Dennis, she's still alive. I know, but we have to be realistic. At her age, after a stroke like that, well, you understand. Yes, I understood. I understood that my husband was already mentally burying my aunt and calculating how much money he could get. The next day, I went back to the hospital. Aunt Ellie looked even weaker, but her mind was clear. "Anna, good you came. I have something else. Important." "Tell me, Auntie." "The numbers. For the safe. 030862. It was my grandmother's birthday. And Anna, on the voice recorder in there, are recordings, conversations. Interesting conversations I overheard." "What recordings?" "About what's been happening in my house for the last 2 years. I remembered every visit from your relatives, every word they said. A chill went down my spine. You remembered them. Not remembered. Recorded. On a voice recorder. I wanted to understand. Who was who, really? And I did, dear. I understood a great deal." Aunt Ellie closed her eyes, and for a few minutes silence filled the room. I thought she'd fallen asleep, but then she spoke again. "Remember about a year ago, your husband came to me, asked to borrow money for repairs. I remembered. Dennis had said he urgently needed money to replace pipes in the bathroom, and payday was a week away. I remember. Well, After I gave him the money, he stayed in the living room. I went to make tea, and I heard him on the phone with his mother. And he didn't need money for any repairs. He was just testing me to see if I'd lend it to him. Then he told his mother that the old fool fell for the story about the pipes. My cheeks burned with shame. Could Dennis really have said that maybe you misheard? No, dear, I didn't mishear. And that's not all. Over the past 2 years, I've heard many interesting things about how long I was going to suffer, about how it wouldn't be bad if I kicked the bucket soon, about how that kook might actually have something valuable. It was painful and shameful to listen. Was my family really like this? Why are you telling me this? So you know the truth. So you're prepared for what will happen after I'm gone. They will show their true colors, my dear, and you'll see who's really worth what. Just then, Dr. Evans came in. I'm sorry, but the patient needs to rest. You can come tomorrow. Aunt Ellie nodded to the doctor, then looked at me. Anna, remember everything I'm doing is for your own good. You'll understand soon. At home, another conversation with Dennis awaited. He met me at the door. Well, what are the doctors saying? The same, condition critical. Is she conscious? Thinking clearly. Yes, she's lucid. And did she say anything about a will? There it was, the main question. I decided to test my husband. Why do you need to know? What do you mean, why you're her only relative? It's logical you'd get something. And if I don't? Dennis hesitated for a second. Well, then you don't. But it would be nice if you did. We have so many plans. Renovations, a new car, a little place in the country for Mom, a place in the country for his mom. That was new. This was the first I'd heard of my mother-in-law's dream. Since when does your mom have plans for a country house? Oh, she's been dreaming about it for ages, just didn't say anything. And now maybe there's a real chance. The doorbell interrupted us. Valerie Peterson stood on the threshold, a bag of groceries in her hand. Decided to make my famous lasagna, she announced, heading for the kitchen, and to get an update on your aunt. Over dinner, my mother-in-law was surprisingly talkative. Anna, tell me your aunt's house. Is it big? It's a regular 3-bedroom downtown. And the lot, is it large? Not huge, maybe a 1/4 acre. I see. And inside, Nice furniture. The interrogation continued for about 20 minutes. Valerie inquired about every detail from the number of rooms to whether there was a garage. Mom, why do you need to know all this? Even Dennis finally couldn't stand it. Oh, just curious. You know, in case Anna inherits something. One needs to understand the scope. The scope? What a telling word. Valerie, it's still too early to think about that. Early or not, one must be prepared. What if there's a will? What if there's something valuable? After my mother-in-law left, I couldn't hold back. Dennis, I don't like this attitude. Aunt Ellie might not make it, and you're already dividing her inheritance. Nobody's dividing anything. It's just, we're hoping. Hoping our lives can finally change for the better, that we can afford things. There was a sincerity in his voice, and I almost believed him. But Aunt Ellie's words about the overheard conversation wouldn't leave my mind. The 3rd day at the hospital was the last. Aunt Ellie was conscious but spoke with difficulty. Anna, it'll all be over soon. I want to say goodbye. Don't say that. The doctors are fighting. No, dear, I can feel it. And I want you to know. I love you very much. You were the only one who was truly sincere with me all these years. Tears welled up in my throat. I love you too, Aunt Ellie. You've been like a second mother to me. That's why I did what I did. In the will. You'll understand when the time comes. What did you do? I took care of your future and arranged a little lesson for the others. She smiled weakly. What lesson? A lesson about how greed and hypocrisy come at a high price. Your family will get what they deserve. Her last words were spoken with effort, and I realized her strength was failing. Aunt Ellie, sleep. I'll be here. No, sweetheart. Go home. Tomorrow. Tomorrow the lawyer will come. Listen carefully. Those were her last words. That night the hospital called. Aunt Ellie had passed away in her sleep peacefully. In the morning, I had to break the sad news to the family. Dennis expressed his condolences, but I noticed an unconcealed curiosity in his eyes. Valerie Peterson limited herself to a perfunctory comment about it being expected at her age. And I thought about the secret room, the voice recorder, and the surprise Aunt Ellie had prepared for us all in her will. The funeral was set for Friday, a small service at Willow Creek Cemetery as Aunt Ellie had wished. I handled all the arrangements, the casket flowers, the post-funeral reception. Dennis helped, formally more concerned about work and having to take a day off. On the morning of the service, I stood before the mirror fastening my black dress, thinking about Aunt Ellie's last words. What surprise had she prepared, and what did her hints about recorded conversations mean? Ready! Dennis peeked into the bedroom, adjusting his tie. His face wore the usual mask of polite sympathy. Yes, where's Valerie? Mom's already downstairs waiting. By the way, she bought a wreath from our whole family. A beautiful, expensive one. Of course expensive. My mother-in-law loved to show that one shouldn't skimp on important events, especially when there was an audience. Valerie Peterson was indeed standing by the entrance in a smart suit holding an impressive wreath of white chrysanthemums. "Anna, my deepest condolences," she said, formally kissing my cheek. "Even though your aunt was a bit odd, she was a good person." "Thank you. So are many people expected, her friends, acquaintances?" The question sounded a little too interested. "Not too many. Aunt Ellie was a homebody these last few years." "I see. Well, let's go." In the car, Dennis turned on the radio but kept the volume lower than usual. It was a funeral after all. Valerie sat in the back, sighing periodically, feigning grief. "Anna, are you sure she didn't have any other relatives?" "Positive, I'm the only one." "And did she leave any documents?" "I will perhaps." "Valerie, let's not talk about this today." "Oh, I'm not being greedy, just thinking practically. The house has left things. Someone has to take care of it." Dennis caught my eye in the rearview mirror and shook his head slightly, as if to say, "Don't pay attention." But I sensed that he, too, was wondering about it. About 15 people were waiting for us at the church, mostly elderly neighbors of Aunt Ellie and a few women from her former antique shop. Everyone spoke warmly of her, remembering her kindness and generosity. Eleanor was a special person, one of the neighbors recounted, always helped however she could, and her collections true works of art. "Really?" Valerie's interest perked up. "What exactly paintings, jewelry?" "All sorts of things, antique paintings, porcelain, silver. They say her grandfather was a famous artist." I saw my mother-in-law's eyes light up. The information about the artist grandfather clearly seemed promising to her. The service was solemn and sad. I cried sincerely, remembering my childhood spent at Aunt Ellie's house, her stories, her care. Dennis stood beside me, offering a supportive arm, but I felt his thoughts were far away. After the church, as we walked towards the grave, I noticed a distinguished-looking man, tall in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit. He stood slightly apart from the main group, his face serious, observant. Strangers don't usually attend funerals. "Dennis, do you see that man in the gray suit? Who could that be?" My husband looked in the indicated direction. "I don't know. Maybe one of her antique buyers." But something told me he wasn't just a buyer. Too formal, too attentive. At the cemetery during the committal, the stranger approached me. "Allow me to introduce myself. Robert K. Sterling, attorney at law. Please accept my condolences." "Thank you. And how did you know my aunt?" "Eleanor Ainsworth was my client. A week ago, she contacted me to make changes to her will." My heart skipped a beat. So Aunt Ellie had been telling the truth. "A will. Yes, we will read it tomorrow in my office. Ms. Ainsworth wished for it to happen the day after the ceremony. Here's my card." The lawyer handed me a business card and added, "She also asked me to tell you that important information awaits you." "What do you mean?" "Everything will be clarified on Monday. Goodbye." He turned and walked towards the cemetery exit, leaving me completely bewildered. "Who was that?" Dennis approached. "A lawyer. Apparently Aunt Ellie made a will." My husband's eyes lit up, but he tried to maintain a neutral expression. "Well, that's good. Means everything will be official." He said he'll read the will on Monday. And what could be in it? The house and everything else. I don't know, we'll see. But on the way home, I kept thinking about the lawyer's words. A surprise awaits. Important information. What did it mean the reception was held at a cafe near the cemetery? The few guests remembered Aunt Ellie sharing memories. Valerie Peterson was surprisingly active, questioning everyone about what they knew of the deceased's life. "And did you visit Eleanor at home often?" she asked a neighbor. "No, rarely. She was a private person, but her house was interesting old-fashioned. They say her grandfather built it." "And what was in the house?" "Furniture, paintings. There was plenty of everything. It felt like she never threw anything away." My mother-in-law nodded, memorizing every word. After the reception, we decided to drive to Aunt Ellie's house, officially to check if everything was okay. Windows closed, gas off. Unofficially, everyone was eager to look at the potential inheritance. The house greeted us with silence and the smell of old books. Nothing had changed since my last visit. The same rugs, the same furniture, the same shelves with antique trinkets. "My goodness, look at all this stuff," Valerie gasped, looking around the living room. "And what are we going to do with all of it?" "Nothing for now," I replied. "First the will, then we'll decide." But my mother-in-law was already walking through the rooms, appraisingly examining each item. "Dennis, look at this tea set. It looks like real china. And this painting, I think it's an antique." Dennis obediently followed his mother, echoing her exclamations. I watched this charade with growing disgust. "Can we see the other rooms?" Valerie asked. "Of course." We went into the bedroom, then the study. There were especially many books and folders with documents here. A massive floor-to-ceiling bookcase stood against one wall. I wonder what's behind this bookcase," my mother-in-law muttered, trying to peek behind it. I remembered Aunt Ellie's words about the secret room and tensed up involuntarily. Nothing special, just a wall. "Such a big bookcase. Maybe there was another room there once." "No, it's just an alcove for books." I didn't want them to find out about the secret room yet. Whatever was there, I had to see it first. After an hour of inspection, Valerie summarized, "Well, there are a lot of things. Some look valuable. But the main thing is, the house, it's good downtown. That's already something." "Mom, you talk as if you already know it's all ours," Dennis remarked. "And who else's would it be? She's the only relative." "Maybe Auntie left something to someone else. Neighbors' charities." "Oh, no," my mother-in-law exclaimed indignantly. "Family should come first." "Family?" How interesting she said that, considering she disliked Aunt Ellie during her lifetime. That evening, when we returned home, Valerie Peterson called a family council. "All right, kids, let's discuss the situation practically. If Anna gets the house and all the property we need, to think about how best to organize everything. What's the point of discussing something that hasn't happened yet?" I tried to stop this conversation. "There is a point. We need to be ready. I think the house could be sold, and with that money we could buy something more practical. For example, well, I've wanted a little place in the country for a long time with a garden, and Dennis needs a new car. The rest can be put aside for the children's education." The plan, it turned out, was already made. I wondered when she'd had time to draw it up. "Valerie, maybe we should first find out what's actually in the will." Of course, but planning ahead doesn't hurt." Dennis was silent, but I could see his thoughts were similar. His eyes reflected dreams of a new car and an easy life. "And what if it's not just the house?" he suddenly asked. "What do you mean?" "Well, maybe there's some money savings. Where would she get money? Her pension was small, the little shop didn't bring in much income. If only they knew about the $2 million from the shop sale. But I decided to keep quiet for now. "Still, it wouldn't hurt to check. Maybe there are bank accounts." Valerie Peterson nodded approvingly. "Good thinking, son. We need to find out everything thoroughly." The next 2 days dragged on agonizingly slowly. Valerie called every few hours asking if I had received any additional information from the lawyer. Dennis was also nervous and distracted. "Listen, are you sure you don't know anything about Auntie's finances?" he asked on Saturday evening. "How would I know?" "Well, you talked. Maybe she said something." I remembered the conversation in the hospital about selling the shop, but decided not to tell him. She said various things, but we didn't really talk about money. "I see." It's just strange. She lived alone, spent little. Where did the money go? Maybe she spent more than it seems. On what? She never went anywhere, didn't buy anything special. Dennis clearly suspected something, or perhaps he just desperately wanted Aunt Ellie to have savings. On Sunday, I decided to go to the house again, alone. Officially to check if the pipes were leaking after the rain. Unofficially to find the place Aunt Ellie had told me about. The house stood quiet and empty. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating dust motes in the air. I went into the study and carefully examined the bookcase. It looked like an ordinary bookcase fitting snugly against the wall. But Aunt Ellie had said something was hidden behind it. I started feeling the bookshelves, looking for some mechanism. On the third shelf, from the bottom, behind a thick encyclopedia volume, my hand brushed against a small button. I pressed it. Miraculously, the entire bookcase slowly slid to the side, revealing a narrow passage. Beyond the passage was a small windowless storeroom, lit only by a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. But what I saw made my heart pound. Paintings hung on the walls. Not just ordinary pictures, but genuine works of art. Landscapes, portraits, still lifes, all executed by a master's hand. In the corner stood a safe, and on a small table lay a stack of documents. I moved closer to the paintings. In the bottom right corner of one, a signature read, M. Ainsworth, 1937. Aunt Ellie's grandfather. So he really had been an artist. There were over 20 paintings. If each was worth even $50,000, the total value of the collection could reach over $1 million. I approached the safe. The code Aunt Ellie had given me 031962, my grandmother's birthday. The lock clicked and the door swung open. Inside were folders with documents, a small digital voice recorder, and an envelope with my name on it. I picked up the letter first. Aunt Ellie's familiar, dear handwriting. My dearest Anna, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Don't be sad. I lived a long and interesting life. I want to explain what has been happening for the past 2 years. I deliberately observed your family, testing their character and intentions. Unfortunately, the results disheartened me. Your husband and his mother see me only as a source of potential gain. Over these years, I've heard countless conversations about how long I was going to suffer when I would finally pass on, and what could be gained after my demise. I was particularly struck by a conversation a year ago when Dennis asked for a loan for repairs. After I gave him the money, he called his mother and laughed about how the old fool fell for it, admitting there were no repairs. He just wanted to see if I'd lend him the money so they'd know there was something to count on. All these conversations are recorded on the voice recorder in this safe. I had discrete microphones installed in the living room and kitchen 2 years ago. I wanted to understand who was who. The reality exceeded my worst expectations. Your family failed the test completely. They think of me only as a source of inheritance, discuss my possible death with unseemly enthusiasm, and make plans for my money. The only one who was sincere with me was you, Anna. That is why I made the decision reflected in my will. By the way, about the money in this safe are documents for bank accounts. After selling the shop, I have $2 million, plus my grandfather's collection of paintings is worth at least another $1 million. But the most interesting part you will learn tomorrow at the reading of the will. There are special conditions in it that will show your relatives their true face. Be strong, my dear, and remember, true family are not those who are close by blood, but those who are close in spirit. Your loving Aunt Ellie. My hands trembled as I read the letter. So Aunt Ellie had indeed recorded everything, and what she heard had compelled her to change her will. I picked up the voice recorder and pressed play. Dennis's voice, so familiar, yet speaking monstrous words. Mom, you won't believe it. The old lady gave me the money for repairs. I spun her a yarn about the pipes and she bought it. Now we know for sure there's something to count on after she's gone. And then Valerie's voice. Good job, son. I was wondering if she had anything valuable. Now it's clear she does, and quite a bit if she parts with money so easily. Heck, that house alone is worth a fortune downtown Good Lot. Could fetch $500,000, maybe more. Plus all those antique knickknacks. I was looking online yesterday. Some antiques are worth a lot. Dennis again. The main thing is that she leaves everything to Anna. What if she wills it to some stranger, Valerie? Oh, where else would it go? Anna's the only relative. It's just a pity she's so principled. She might object to selling the house. Dennis. Nah, we'll convince her. Explain it's more practical. Listening further was unbearable. So all this time, they had only seen Aunt Ellie as a source of income, plan to sell her house, divide the money without even considering that I might have other plans. I turned off the recorder and took the folders. Bank statements confirmed the letter's words. The accounts indeed held millions. Closing the safe and putting everything back, I left the secret room. The bookcase slid back into place, leaving no trace of the hidden compartment. I returned home in a state of inner turmoil. Tomorrow, I would find out exactly what surprise Aunt Ellie had prepared in her will. And judging by her letter, this surprise would show everyone their true faces. That evening, Dennis was particularly affectionate. "How are you doing?" "Honey, not too nervous about tomorrow." "A little nervous." "Don't worry. Whatever's in the will, we'll handle it. The main thing is, we'll finally have a chance to live better." Well, yeah, you're my wife. Your inheritance is our shared wealth." So that's how he saw it. My inheritance automatically became our shared wealth. "And what if I don't want to share?" Dennis laughed. "Don't want to? What are you talking about? We're family. In a family, everything is shared." Interesting logic. What logic? It's natural. You'll see. Tomorrow we'll find out what you got, and we'll start planning our new future. Our new future. The one they had already planned without me. Valerie's call wasn't long in coming. "Anna, dear, how are you? Ready for tomorrow?" "Ready?" I was thinking, should we bring an appraiser with us? What if there's something really valuable and we don't realize it? Why an appraiser? Let's first find out what we're actually getting. Of course. Just want to be fully prepared. By the way, I made a list of what needs to be done first. What list? Oh, just practical matters. Property appraisal paperwork, finding buyers for the house, so we're not scrambling later. A list, too. Amazing how quickly they'd planned everything. "Valerie, what if I don't want to sell the house?" "Don't want to. But why would you want a house downtown? The property taxes are high and upkeep is expensive. It's better to sell it and buy something more practical. For example, well, I need a little place in the country. Dennis needs a car pay for the kids' education. It's sensible, isn't it? Sensible for them. What was sensible for me, no one cared. I couldn't sleep much that night, thinking about the next day. What surprise had Aunt Ellie prepared? And how would my family react when they learned the truth? One thing I knew for sure tomorrow, many things would change, and not necessarily for the better for everyone. Monday dawned overcast and rainy. We had agreed to meet at the lawyer's office at 10 a.m. Dennis took a day off. Valerie canceled all her appointments. The event was clearly considered a family milestone. "Anna ready to find out your destiny?" Valerie joked as we met outside the law office. "Ready." I couldn't sleep all night from excitement. Imagine maybe there's $1 million there or even more. Dennis nervously adjusted his tie. He was clearly on edge, too. "The main thing is that everything is fair and official," he muttered. Mr. Sterling's office was on the 3rd floor of an old building downtown. He greeted us in a formal office lined with legal books. "Please have a seat. We shall begin the reading of the last will and testament of Eleanor Grace Ainsworth." He took a thick folder from his safe and solemnly opened it. "According to the will drafted on the 21st of last month, that is 1 week prior to the testatrix's demise, all property passes to her niece, Anna Elizabeth Crawford." Using your original last name for Anna. Valerie let out a sigh of relief. Dennis squeezed my hand. "What exactly does the inheritance include?" I asked. "The residential house with the land plot at 12 Garden Street, a Mercedes sedan bank, accounts totaling $2 million. Silence hung in the air. $2 million. Valerie turned pale. Dennis's jaw dropped. $2 million, he stammered. "Precisely. Eleanor Ainsworth was a considerably wealthy woman, but that is not all." The lawyer turned a page. According to the will, the heiress also receives a collection of paintings by the artist Michael Ainsworth, valued by experts at $1 million, plus a special message. What message? I asked, though I had a strong suspicion. Eleanor Ainsworth requested that I give you this voice recorder with recordings. She believed you should know the truth about your loved ones. Mr. Sterling took the familiar recorder from the folder and placed it on the table. What recordings? Dennis tensed up. Conversations that took place in the deceased's home. She recorded them for the past 2 years. My husband's face turned ashen. Valerie fidgeted nervously in her chair. Why would she do that? She whispered. She wanted to understand the true motives of her relatives, and judging by the will, she did. I took the recorder in my hands, heavy with its many recorded files. This concludes the proceedings, the lawyer announced. Congratulations on your inheritance. The documents for transfer are ready. You can pick them up in a week. Outside, no one spoke. We got into the car and sat in silence for a long time. Valerie was the first to speak. $2 million. That's a fortune. Plus, the house and the paintings, Dennis added. Anna, do you realize you're a millionaire now? I realize, and these recordings. What could she have recorded? I looked at the recorder lying on my lap. I don't know, we'll listen at home. Or maybe we shouldn't, Valerie said quickly. Why dredge up the past? Better to think about the future. What future? Well, now we have so many opportunities. We can buy that country place a car, give the kids a good education. We. That word again. At home, Dennis immediately grabbed his phone. Mom, you won't believe it. We're rich. Anna inherited $2 million. Now we can get you that place in the country and I can get a new SUV. And you know something nice for Anna with what's left over. He joyfully reported to his mother. I listened to this conversation with mounting outrage. Something nice with what's left over. That was about me, the one who received the inheritance. Dennis, end the call. We need to talk. Seriously. Okay, Mom, I'll call you back later. Yes, exactly $2 million. Can you imagine? He hung up and turned to me, his eyes shining. Anna, I'm so happy. Finally, we can live like human beings. Like we can. Well, yeah, we're family. Your wealth is our shared wealth. And if I don't see it that way? Dennis laughed. What are you talking about? Of course it's ours. We're husband and wife. And that's why you've already distributed the inheritance. A country place for your mom, a car for yourself, and something nice with what's left over. For me. Oh, I was just kidding. Don't take everything so seriously. That wasn't a joke, Dennis. That was your true attitude. I picked up the recorder and played the first recording. Dennis's voice filled the room clear and distinct. Mom, you won't believe it. The old fool gave me the money for repairs. I spun her a yarn about the pipes and she bought it. My husband's face froze. He stared at the recorder as if it were a snake. That's not what you think. Then what is it? I don't remember such a conversation. I played the next recording, Valerie's voice. Good job, son. I was wondering if she had anything valuable. Now it's clear she does, and quite a bit. And then Dennis's voice again. The main thing is that she leaves everything to Anna. What if she wills it to some stranger? Turn it off, Dennis said hoarsely. Why aren't those your voices? Anna, I can explain. Explain. We were just dreaming planning. Is that so bad? I played a recording from 2 years ago. Valerie's voice sounded particularly cynical. I wonder how much longer she's going to suffer. At her age, it's about time she met her maker. Dennis. Mom, don't say that, Valerie. What she lives alone, nobody needs her just taking up space. And that house of hers is nice. It would be great to get it after she departs for the next world. The silence in the room became deafening. Dennis sat pale, clenching his fists. We didn't mean it like that. Then what did you mean? You called her an old fool, wished for her speedy demise, planned to sell her house, and that's not wishing her ill. Anna, everyone thinks like that. It's normal. No, Dennis, not everyone, and it's not normal. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Valerie, not waiting for an invitation, burst into the apartment. Well, did you listen to the recordings? Probably a bunch of nonsense on there. I played the fragment with her voice. My mother-in-law listened gradually, turning paler. That's That's wrong. You can't eavesdrop on people, but those are your words. So, what people say, all sorts of things, you can't take everything seriously. So when you wished Aunt Ellie a speedy departure that wasn't serious, we didn't wish it, we were just speculating. All right then, let's speculate practically. I've decided not to share the inheritance. A dead silence fell. What do you mean, not share? Dennis asked. Very simple. It's my inheritance, and I'll manage it myself. But we're family, Valerie exclaimed. The same family that called my aunt an old fool and dreamed of her death. Anna, don't be cruel. We didn't mean any harm. Then what did you mean? Just poverty, wanting a better life at someone else's expense. Dennis jumped up from the couch. Listen, Anna, stop acting like a saint. Yes, we said things, but we didn't kill her. She died of old age. No, you didn't kill her. You just eagerly awaited this moment. And you didn't. You didn't think about the inheritance. No, Dennis, I didn't. I thought about how to help her, how to ease her suffering. Oh, so righteous. And now what, you're going to keep it all for yourself? Exactly. That's not fair, Valerie shrieked. I've dreamed of a little place in the country my whole life, and Dennis needs a car. Your dreams, your problems. Dennis sat down beside me and tried to take my hand. Anna, let's be rational. We're a family. We have children. We need money for their education, for a normal life. I need money for my life, too. But you can't take it all for yourself. That's selfish. And when you plan to sell the house and divide the money without asking my opinion, that wasn't selfish. We were planning for everyone. You would have gotten something, too. Yes, something nice with what's left over, I remember. Dennis jumped up and started pacing. You know what, Anna? If you don't want to share, then I'm giving you an ultimatum. Either we divide the inheritance fairly, or it's a divorce. Fairly? And how is it fair? Half for me, the country place for mom education for the kids, and the rest for you. Half of $2 million. Why not? I'm your husband. I looked at this man I had lived with for 10 years. Greedy eyes demanding tone, complete conviction in his right to someone else's money. All right, Dennis, then it's a divorce. He froze mid-room. What? I choose divorce. You can't be serious. Perfectly serious. But we have children, a family. The children will remain children. As for the family, it seems there never really was one. Valerie clutched her heart. Anna, have you lost your mind? Ruining a family over some money. I'm not ruining the family. You ruined it with your greed. We're not greedy. We just want a better life. At my expense. And what's wrong with that? You're rich now. I stood up and walked to the window. A light rain was falling outside. People hurried by under umbrellas. Ordinary life, an ordinary day. And my world was collapsing. Anna? Dennis's voice softened. Let's not rush things. Think carefully. Is money really more important than family? And for you, wasn't money more important than family? We're not abandoning the family. We want to improve it with the inheritance that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to my wife, whom you're ready to abandon if she doesn't share. Dennis paused, considering his answer. I'm not prepared to live in poverty when there are millions lying around. There was the answer. Money was more important to him than family. And for you, isn't it important? It's important, but not so important that I'd tolerate hypocrisy and greed for it. The next 2 hours were filled with endless arguments, threats, and attempts at pressure. Valerie cried, talking about her dream of a country house. Dennis switched from pleas to demands, but I remained steadfast. I'm asking you one last time, Dennis said before leaving. Will you share or not? No. Then tomorrow I'm filing for divorce, and I'll demand half the assets through court. Please do. And I'll take the kids. Try it. They left, slamming the door. I was alone with the voice recorder and my thoughts. That evening the lawyer called. Anna Crawford, Robert Sterling here. I have some additional information for you. What is it? Eleanor Ainsworth anticipated the possibility of a family conflict over the inheritance. If you divorce within 1 year of receiving the inheritance for reasons related to it, you will receive an additional house and the shop premises, which she did not include in the main will. My breath caught. Another house? Yes, in a prestigious neighborhood, plus the commercial space of her former antique shop downtown. Eleanor Ainsworth was a very shrewd woman. But how could she have known there would be a divorce? She studied the characters of your relatives and drew the appropriate conclusions. She turned out to be right. After talking to the lawyer, I sat in the kitchen for a long time trying to comprehend what had happened. Aunt Ellie had foreseen everything. She knew the family would show their true colors. She knew there would be an ultimatum. She knew I would choose divorce. The following months were a whirlwind of court proceedings and stress. Dennis did file for divorce and demanded half the inheritance. But his lawyers explained to him that an inheritance received by one spouse is generally not subject to division. Then he demanded custody of the children, accusing me of greed and selfishness. But Max and Sophie were old enough to understand what was happening. They stayed with me. "Mom, is it true we have a lot of money now?" Sophie asked one evening. "It's true." "Then why did Dad leave?" "Because money turned out to be more important to him than family." "And for you, for me, family is more important." "But a real family, where people love each other, not money." Max was older and understood more. "Mom, those recordings, did Dad really say those things about Aunt Ellie?" "Yes, son. That's not good. Not good at all, so you did the right thing." "I hope so." 6 months after the divorce, Dennis married his colleague, Marina, a young woman who very quickly helped him spend all his savings on a lavish lifestyle. Valerie often complained to the children that her new daughter-in-law was squandering everything and not thinking about the future. "Grandma says Dad's new wife spends a lot of money," Sophie told me after a visit to her father. "And what does Dad say?" "He gets upset, says he doesn't have enough for a normal life." "And does he mention the country place for Grandma and—" "Yeah. He says if you had shared the inheritance, they'd have the country place and the car." "And what do you tell him?" "I say, the money was yours and you had the right to decide." A smart girl understanding fairness better than some adults. I moved into Aunt Ellie's house, large, cozy with a garden and the secret room which became my study. My great-grandfather's paintings adorned the walls. The bank accounts ensured a comfortable existence, but the loneliness was hard, especially in the evenings when the children were with their father and the house felt too big and empty. "No regrets?" my friend Lena asked one day. She was the only one who had supported me during that difficult time. "About what?" "The divorce. Not compromising." I thought for a long time. "You know, sometimes I do. Not about the money, about the family, that I couldn't save it." "But you didn't destroy it." "I know, but it still hurts. And if I had shared the inheritance, I'd be living with people who only see me as a source of money. That's painful too." "So you did the right thing." "Probably." A year after the divorce, Mr. Sterling handed me the documents for the additional inheritance. Another house, another source of income. Aunt Ellie had taken care of everything, but wealth hadn't brought happiness. It brought independence, confidence in the future, the ability to give my children a good education, but not happiness. "Mom, will you ever get married again?" Max asked when he turned 15. "I don't know, son. Maybe." "And if you do, will it be to someone who won't demand your money?" "Definitely someone like that." "How will you know?" "I won't tell them about the money until after the wedding." Max laughed. "Smart." "Yes, smart. Aunt Ellie taught me not only how to recognize greed, but also how to protect myself from it." 3 years passed. The children grew up, became more independent. Dennis called occasionally, complaining about financial difficulties. Valerie Peterson never got her country place, and I learned to live alone. I won't say it's easy, but it's honest. I'm surrounded by beautiful things. I have everything I need for life. And most importantly, I have a clear conscience. Sometimes I think about what might have been if Aunt Ellie hadn't recorded those conversations. Would I have lived in blissful ignorance, considering Dennis and Valerie good people. Would I have shared the inheritance and everyone would have been happy? But would I have been happy knowing their true faces now, I realize? No. Sooner or later, the truth would have surfaced and the money would have already been spent. Aunt Ellie gave me not only wealth, but also enlightenment. Painful, but necessary. She showed me that true family are not those close by blood, but those close in spirit. And though I may be alone, I am free. Free from hypocrisy, from greed, from the need to tolerate those who see me only as a source of gain. Thank you, Aunt Ellie, I sometimes say aloud, sitting in her old armchair. Thank you for the lesson. Painful, but honest. And outside the window, life goes on. People hurry about their business, make plans, dream of wealth, not knowing that wealth without love is just a beautiful cage, but a cage you can open whenever you want. And that's already something.